Thanks for having us out.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit about the story of Tablas and these vineyards.
Two families, the Perrin family, the other family being an American family, the Haas family, Robert Haas, and they were just in California selling wine and asking the question, everything here is Cabernet and Chardonnay. Why is there no Rhone varietals here? This is perfect for that. The weather, the climate is so much similar to where we are. We should do something. And they searched California up and down, West Coast really up and down, looking for the ultimate spot to do this product. So they were looking for limestone soils. They were looking for enough sunshine to ripen Mourvedre. And they found it here.
Can you tell me a little bit about your story, how you got into winemaking?
Yeah, I was in the restaurant industry, and while I was working in that business, just grew a passion for wine and read a lot about wine and decided I wanted to do a year in a small winery. I can read, but I don't understand it so well as anything as well as actually physically get my hands in it. Got a job at a winery down the street, started doing that in 91 and just loved it.
And then you came over here, and you've been here pretty much since the beginning.
Yeah, I did a year in France working in the vineyards and winery at Beaucastel and then moved back here in July of 98, and I've been here ever since.
Do you have a nickname around here, like Father of Tablas or something along that?
Yeah, I haven't heard it, but I'm sure there is one. Weird guy that wanders around.
What is your philosophy behind the style of wines that you make here at Tablas?
It's really simple, that question. I mean, how I see it was I was tasked when I got here with the job of growing grapes and making wines that best demonstrate a sense of place. They bought this property specifically because they felt it was unique. The limestone soil particularly is incredibly unique within California. It's rare, it's hard to find. And so the goal is let's produce wines that are as clear a reflection of this place as we can possibly make. So farming organically now, we're moving into biodynamics, an introduction of animals in the vineyard, more diversity, just trying to leave this place in a better state than we found it. And then when we get to the winery, again, it's very traditional. We don't use much new oak. Everything is fermented on native yeast. We don't inoculate anything. And that's all in an attempt to display this beautiful, incredible piece of land that we have here.
For a winemaker who sounds like you want to be very hands-off, you actually have a lot of decisions to make when it comes to the blending process.
So what happens is that we sit down at a table and we'll sit and we'll taste every single lot that we have in our cellar blind, and we'll make ratings on the individual lots of individual varietals from individual blocks, etc., etc. And from those tastings, we'll go back and we'll put together some potential blends of, okay. Wow. And then we taste 3 or 4 versions of those blind, and then we're saying, okay, order of preference, which ones you like. And we keep going until we all agree that this is the one. So sometimes it can be a couple of days, sometimes it can be a couple of weeks. There have been times when we've just packed it up and gone home and come back to it a month later.
And you live on property, right?
I do. My family, my kids grew up here. It's home for us. I was here the day the first vine went in the ground, just as a nosy neighbor, not as an employee. Yeah, we'll be harvesting this stuff in late September, early October. Clusters are going to tighten up, and then we'll start seeing the turn of color. This time of year is nerve-wracking because you're hoping everything keeps going in the right direction, and you get to the end of it and you're tired of getting up at 4 in the morning and staying up till 8 at night and in the winery and want it to be over. But it's always the most exciting thing because that's where the season is.
I wanted to get to know more about the biodynamic farming and the use of the animals in the vineyard. So for that, I went to Nathan, Tablas Creek's own personal shepherd.
This is a herd of sheep, Tablas Creek. There's about 200 of them right now. The guardian animals, Fiona and Dottie, the donkeys. Fiona doesn't like me. I don't like you either, Fiona. And then if you look in the back, you can see the alpacas with the funny looking necks.
I see them.
They just got sheared, so don't be too hard on them. They don't always look that bad. So the herd started as kind of a novelty, but now that we've gone into biodynamics and we're becoming certified biodynamics, it's going to be a big part of building soil in the vineyard. And they'll graze in between the vines all winter long, keeping the weeds down, cutting back mow passes, fertilizing. Was that 240 cubic feet of manure that we didn't buy, that we didn't truck here, using fuel and all the other costs of running equipment. They're putting compost on the ground for us without us having to spread it with tractors and trucks. The final byproduct is we have lamb for sale. We'll be harvesting 20, 30, 40 lambs, and then we distribute them out to the local restaurants. But they're getting organic, biodynamic, no hormones, no antibiotics. My big argument, not everybody's, but my big argument is the more animals we can get back on the land, properly managed, that's not the valley. I'm not talking about like feedlots and creating methane and all that, but properly managed animals on the livestock can put carbon back in the soil and keep it there forever. That's kind of what I'm passionate about, is using them to save the planet in a small way.
Getting older, time growing shorter. You packed your patience, swallowed
This is like a pig's version of like Baywatch.
Weighs on your soul, weighs on your shoulders.
Tablas Creek is equally owned and run by two families. One of the families is my family. My dad is Robert Haas. He was an importer who started the company Vineyard Brands. He's been importing wine since the 1950s. The other family is the Perrin family from Chateau de Beaucastel in Châteauneuf-du-Pape in the south of France, whose wines my dad introduced into the US market in the 1960s, and with whom he became friends. There were three things that they were looking for that led them to Paso. So the first thing they were looking for was the right kind of climate, which meant hot enough and sunny enough to ripen some of the latest ripening grapes in France, but moderated enough so that the earlier Rhone varieties like Syrah and Viognier didn't go flabby.
No.
Second thing we were looking for was enough rainfall to dry farm. And then the third thing that we were looking for was limestone.
Wow. And so between those three, you're left with a perfect place to recreate Châteauneuf-du-Pape and
Yeah, at least, I mean,
at least try.
And our goal isn't to recreate it exactly, but our goal is to use kind of the same palette of flavors and then have those flavors express this particular place. So the Côte Tablas Blanc is our chance to show off Viognier. So Viognier is one of the classic grapes of the Rhone Valley. But in a warm climate, like in the southern Rhone or like in Paso Robles, it's usually used as a blending grape, but in a lead roll. So the Viognier is that floral juiciness. The Grenache Blanc is citrusy, bright, minerally. Marsanne is restraint, kind of melon, a little bit of honey, pretty, and then Roussanne is structure.
Yeah, right away, just that floral, perfumey.
The nice thing about working with Rhone grapes is that they're meant to be blended with one another. Each of them brings a different strength to the table.
Yeah.
And so you can allow a grape like Viognier to show off what it's great at without having to live with its weaknesses.
Viognier is one of my favorite grapes that I feel like nobody does right, and I don't say that about you guys, so cheers to that.
So the Côte Tablas is our chance to lead with Grenache. So Grenache is kind of the classic grape of the southern Rhone. It accounts for something like 60% of the acreage in the southern Rhone Valley. And you can understand why. It's a grape which is juicy. It's got good acids to balance that juiciness. It shows off herbs and spice in a really nice way. If it has a weakness, it's that it can be a little simple on its own. It's not very dark in color.
No.
And so the classic blending partner for Grenache is Syrah. It's dark, savory, spicy, tannic, but usually not very friendly. So you can think of Grenache as providing friendliness for Syrah, and Syrah as providing seriousness for Grenache. So the Côte Tablas is always led by Grenache, with Syrah as the number 2. And then smaller amounts of Counoise, which has great acidity and just brings everything into focus, and Mourvèdre for this little bit of wild, earthy darkness. The thing that I like about Rhone blends in general is that they're not only one thing. It's not a wine which is one-dimensional at all. It's a wine that has fruit, and it has earth, and it has spice, and it has meat, and it has herbs, and flowers.
You can keep digging.
You can keep digging. It makes you want to keep coming back for a second sip.
Even in a climate as warm as here, this feels fresh.
People often pay more attention to how hot the days get in Paso Robles than they do to how cold the nights are. And the fact that you can pick You can pick the same grapes at the same sugar levels that you get in the Rhone Valley with higher acids in Paso Robles because the nights are so cold.
Well, thank you so much for taking us on this tour.
You are welcome.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.
Get the wine, full episodes, and more at viasforvino.com.